team that's kicking on as well, which we'll move on to now, is Nottingham Forest. Again, we talk about them weekly, it feels like, at the minute, but beating Tottenham easily, I think it's fair to say, 1-0. I think they were pretty explosive on only less than 30% of the possession as well in this game, with a deserved victory once again. And a few players that stood out for me, obviously we're talking about Murillo and Milenkovic, and they were outstanding again. Matt Sells deserves huge credit for how he's part of that defensive rock as well, Dave. But I think Anthony Elanga in this game really stood out. I think he was absolutely class. And again, as a United fan, I keep thinking to myself, what is he doing at Forest? He should have been at United, shouldn't he, really?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've got a bit of a jinx in me. I was saying the other week about James Maddison and how he disappointed me, and then obviously went and scored a couple of goals, didn't he, in the next game. And now I mentioned the other week about Anthony Elanga, and I thought, he's had a slow start to the season, and now he's scored 3 goals in his last 3 games.
Dave, can you have a chat about Ollie Watkins, please, mate?
The Dave effect,
Yeah, he's just electric at times, and I think when you see him in full motion, you see it for the goal. And let's not forget, Udogie's not a slouch by any means at all, or made him look slow. He's got to be one of the fastest in the league by far, and I think that finish is so underrated. You've got to think how quick he's running, and to have that element of control to stroke it into the corner. I just think he did so well, and it's great to see him doing well. I think he suits this Forest side perfectly. I think he's been used quite well by Nuno in some games. He's preferred other front men or to pack, I think, the midfield a little bit more tightly. But I think for particular games, probably where they're anticipating to have much less of the ball and they're looking to hurt teams on the counter, I think he suits it perfectly, and we saw it to devastating effect in this game. And I think Spurs really struggled actually against them in the transition.
Absolutely classic Forest breakaway, that goal though, wasn't it? And as I say, only 29.7% of the possession. It didn't matter. They were just waiting for the opportunity, and they had a few kind of breakaways where it could have worked out the same way. And that's their kind of method at the minute. And a few Forest fans have said to me, I've seen it on our YouTube channel as well, that they don't like that kind of like pragmatism where they sit back and absorb and then counter. But it's really hard to defend against when the players doing the counter and are so good, isn't it, Miles? And this game was laced with narrative as well. Obviously, Nuno Espirito Santo against Tottenham with a point to prove. Brennan Johnson and Jed Spence go back to the City ground as well. Obviously, Spence himself getting sent off. Yeah, that went really well. So it felt like a kind of game where Forest had a lot to prove. What do you think Nuno will be feeling like at the minute?
You'd be elated because this was the perfect opposition for that Forest counter, wasn't it? You know that Spurs are going to continue to play that same philosophy, that high line, and leave space in behind for a counter-attack at a time where they're missing some of their key defenders as well. So they've rotated their squad, brought in some players that aren't necessarily as quick to get back, and let Forest get in behind them. Like it was made for a Forest win, this game. Spurs have been so inconsistent this season anyway, and Forest, on the other hand, have found various ways to hurt teams. So they were really well set up for this. Nuno did an excellent job. I think that's the encouraging thing about Forest. Yes, they have lightning pace in someone like Elanga, and Hudson-Odoi can get forward and they can be excellent on a counter-attack. But they can also build up really slowly with Gibbs-White and Wood. So they have these different avenues now that they can exploit teams with, and Spurs are definitely a team that are there to be exploited. It felt like it's an excellent win, but it's not a shock. This isn't one that,
not at all,
any other season this would probably be top of our running order, but we put it in towards the end because Forest deserve the credit. It's a great result, but of course they beat Spurs at home. Like that's where this season is going. It's worth remembering though that last season Forest finished 17th, and I think mathematically stayed up on the last game of the season or the game before.
Yeah, it was very close, wasn't it?
And they're third now. Like that is such an incredible turnaround, and we talk about it every week, obviously. And other than the week when they beat Villa, where I'm a bit bitter about it, we give them a lot of credit for it as well. But this game is just a perfect example of where they're at right now. That this was just a routine win, really.
Shades of Emery's Aston Villa last season, I think it's fair to say. That much of a turnaround. It's been impressive so far. 4 wins in a row they've got now. So, yeah, super impressive.